Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. I'm your host, Stephen Topham Hatt the third, at your service. We're going to talk about multiple subjects. Now, the reason we're going to talk about this as multiple subjects is because I'm going to be breaking them down into chapters as I talk. So it easily breaks down the conversation of the whole thing. You know about my book, so that is being written as we speak, and we're going to talk about what's in it to begin with. Not too deeply, obviously, but we also got to talk about the unlikely fandom, obviously, number one. Number two, the 2D disaster. And number three, to finalise it off, it's been 65 years since the original Stack controller was alive and well. Now, the reason I say that is because it was 1958. Anyway, so the first topic we're going to talk about is mainly the unlikely fandom, because the unlikely fandom is targeting everybody around the globe. Yes, it's on hold. Yes, it's causing a lot of confusion and delay, obviously, and it's doing a lot more damage than it looks. All right, seriously, Mattel approved it. Uh-uh. I mean, I know that Thomas and Take is a hybrid, so don't give me, oh, this is a documentary about something new. No, there's something worse. When I looked at the trailers and all that, because it just gives me read between the line job, so I don't have to worry about too much. And the first thing was, Mattel approved it. Big mistake, obviously, may I add. Number two, they got their own problem to talk about, so we're going to talk about the 2D and how far it's stretching. And number three, we're going to talk about what is in my book and finalise it with my ancestors' 65-year gap and reason why. Alright, there's a lot of reasons that I don't want to go into it, but I think you have every right to know about it, right? Anyway, the unlikely fandom, right? In my opinion, this is my own official opinion from the Fat Controller himself, Sir Stephen Topperhat, me, obviously, is like saying, yeah, well, when I looked at the trailers, I thought, is he a friend or is he a train? Or is he both? Or is he more than what the products give out for the kids and the adults alike? Now, the realistic versions of these engines are still floating about today, as a private contact managed to get a hold of to say, look, this is all realistic. This is no BS. You know, and my private contact said, we're going to write this book out at the same time. Excuse my French, at the same time. We're going to write a book on that as well. We're going to write a little chapter on that and saying how would it affect the world if the whole world sees it all and then feel like the Thomas they grew up with, the, and his friends, obviously, and me, obviously, being on top of it, being the fact controller that is realistic, not a fictional character, plus that the island is real, on top of that, in 8 different pieces of the globe. Now, the unlikely fandom has got something they want to share, and I thought, if we let this happen, Mattel wins and destroys the whole franchise. Period. But I'm not going to let it happen because the hats are returning. So, there's the proof there and there. So, the unlikely fandom trailer, teasers, you name it, the unlikely fandom, I see Thomas and Friends as a family, not just a train, not just as a friend. He's family. He may be connected to you in a lot of ways. Yes, I probably agree with a lot of fans out there that were brought up with the series and know the series inside and out. And it makes the series more realistic, but at the same time, it's real life that's in that. Facts proved it. The clues proved it. People proved it. So, how many witnesses do you need? 25,000 to get this topped up dog? I said End of the day, it's all truth. The Fat Controller, which is me, third gen, Sir Stephen Topham the third, actually only lives only 5 minutes away from Wellsworth Station. Now, is that a coincidence or what? Because in the day, you got a real life Hat, but then you're asking, you got him on a line who's telling you the truth. His private contacts are now stepping in to try to help me out. So, with my book stating about the unlikely fandom, I thought that would tie in a little knot for you to say, look, the unlikely fandom is not worth watching. Period. You know, Japan's got it first. Yes, we all know that. So, in the day, when they probably watched it, they probably went to Oxford and said, we hate Thomas to take offence, as an example, in their own language, because they might say, we believe that or we don't believe this. Now, the other thing that I find quite about the fandom, the way it was acted, and the way they're saying it's a train or a friend or a family member or a family friend connection or so forth, and also on top of that, it's all connected. So I'm not lying, right? But you see, the unlikely fandom is going to override the franchise just a little bit because it's realistic now, not a children's book as such. So in the day, you got a realistic back controller moving around, right, watching every move, having eyes and ears everywhere, contacts everywhere, connections everywhere, who are monitoring all of this, not just me. So realistically, so what's happened? The unlikely fandom hasn't shown in the UK or the United States for one reason, because we forbid it. It's going to end up, if when you watch it, you will feel the opposite of what I'm providing you, right? Now, what I'm going to say now is like saying, you, now we covered that little topic or chapter of that unlikely fandom, now we move on to something else, right? I know I didn't want to say this out loud, but I thought I'd better do this as a middle part. 65 years ago, right, in 1958, the very first back controller was on the platform. Now, the reason that is because it's my grandfather. Now, the next thing on the list, that the only person that actually got to saw him was my mother in flesh blood. Yes, and yet, and they talked long time ago, very long time ago, before I was even born. So then, with that being said and done, that's 65 years ago. But then my father took over, which makes him back controller number two, Charles Topham Hatt the second, and then you got 1983 with me on October the 10th. So you've got all three back controllers except my grandfather. So you only got two of us living at the moment. Now, and next thing, the reason why I want to bring that up is because it's been 65 years ago since that fat control, the very first fat controller ever existed. Now, what my what is now happened with my family? Now we are returning in its full glory. Plus, you're gonna get the book on top of that. Will explain a lot more in detail, in depth. Which I want. This is why I don't like to give out too many spoilers. And it's all true. It's all correct. It's all dated, factored. It's been multiplied. It's been plus. It's been minus. It's been done everything. Everybody can be connected to the franchise, depending on who I need it in. And my station master at this moment is helping me with this book. I know this is why he's a private contact, and that's why I'm not giving out names. So the private contact that I have in America stated to you The very first time. The hats are real. We are not fictional. The island wasn't fictional. It's just, you know, how many times have you watched that video and realised it was based on all my ancestors' personalities plus my own? Didn't think that out, did you? That's the thing. Now, so it was 65 years ago. Basically, you have 65 years later, you got me in charge. Now, I'm trying to do my job correctly, and I don't need any more BS. It's the words to express it. I do check it out, I do check the video out all the time, and I do follow the community guidelines if need be. But the thing is, I always double check first, obviously. Now, the third thing that I wanted to bring up on any aspect is that there's a lot of things to be discussed all at once. Um, you know, and you can't always think ahead of schedule, but the way things are going, the book is going to get written. We don't know what the title is going to be, so if you've got any suggestions, this is a good time to give that suggestion. You know, the Return of the Hats would be probably be a good title for it, or something similar to it. Anyway, so now let's get to the next topic. The 2D, that's what it was. So now we are on the third chapter, the 2D disaster. Now, we know it's trying to get more seasons, which is true, which is what Mattel is trying to do at the moment. And basically, they're trying to ruin it and destroy the whole franchise altogether. But they because mine covers the classic and only the CGI, you're safe. Basically, anyone in that series or anyone that's part of that franchise is in that series right now. And a lot of things have come to light. Yes, there's a little secret, but I can't say because it will be in the book, and it will be told in the book. So I won't spoil it. So there you go. Anyway, the 2D is basically when I watched it the very first time, it couldn't sync with my DNA or any of my facts I already had in place. So to to narrow it down, there's a private contact on YouTube and probably in Discord as well, obviously, that has, has made this series quite through and looked into the whole facts. So I'm trying to give out hope, not destruction, because hope is what people need, children and adults need right now for the Thomas and Friends franchise. The Thomas and Friends franchise name may be owned by Mattel, right? And Britt Allcroft and Reverend Robert Aldridge to begin with. You know, regardless that it was Thomas and Friends, I watch it all the time, right? Because I can't stop watching it for one reason. It's because it's all linked to the to my adult life as well as my childhood. So it's all linked. So the 2D has got nothing to do with me, and whatever's happened in that series right now, I just think you should avoid it at all cost. So if you do have any problems of watching 2D version of that, go back to the classic series and the CGI series. Go to season 24 and reverse it and watch it in reverse. Then you'll understand what I have to go through. So, every day people have to respect me, number one. And number two, that everything is all true. And number three, in all pride eyesight, that if you don't believe in magic, the magic will always beat back at you. As Peter Fonda once said to Diesel 10, if I remember correctly, the magic you refuse to believe in will get the better of you. And it did. And when I said to another private friend of mine, which is statistically true. He says, when the unlikely four come together, a lesson is taught. What is the lesson? Magic! So look at it. This is one based topic here, going from there. So you got 65 years ago since the original Fat Controller showed up, but then you got adding my ancestor, Sir Topham Senior, on top of that with his service. So then adding that in, plus the first, then the second, then the third, then bang. Then you're ending up with Emily Helen Hatt as number 4, and then you've got my son in between, which is Richard Topham Hatt, and then you basically got the rest of the family at the end. So that's the whole timeline of Thomas and Friends. So the Hats are officially returning, and that's no joke. Thank you.